Hello everyone, and welcome to my visual guide to the Far Ends of Dimensions Transcendence Stage 2. I'm going to help you keep a high altitude and do my best to help you from getting shaken up from the quakes from down below, and look out for the rain of comets from up above. 3 waves for 1 Lufenia fight! Let's try not to get intimidated this way, as I'll be discussing team comp recommendations as well as the mechanics for each boss. My name is Riley, and I'll be your guide. So without further ado, let's jump right in. We first start off with the boss, Commander Beast, and his worker beasts, also known as really annoying ads. The Lufenia counter here relies on the Commander Beast needing to be delayed, so characters like Garland and shockingly Lightning work really well here. Also keep in mind that the boss here absorbs Holy and Earth. Sorry, Theodore. When the worker beasts take a turn, after it ends, they will occasionally roar and move up the Commander Beast's turns to be next in the order. Try not to lose focus though. As long as you have their braves nice and low, this is not too much to worry about. Also, as a side note here, after the Commander Beast takes his first turn, he'll gain a red aura. When this happens, only a really beefed up DPS unit will honestly do any kind of damage to him. I recommend if you're using my party, consisting of Garland, Sarah, and Aerith, simply have Aerith and Garland focus the main boss, while Sarah can just battery and HP attack the main boss. If you happen to EX with her, keep in mind that if the red aura is active, she'll only do ones on the main boss, so be sure to EX one of the ads. If you're using the next team that I have here, which is consisting of Lightning, Caius, and Y'shtola, I actually would recommend to delay the boss till death. Doing so will actually never allow the red aura to take effect, since the commander has to first take his turn to gain this buff. If you don't have Y'shtola LD and EX Plus only, you can swap this party member out for another battery unit. I'd recommend Maria, Leon, Rude, Rem, Mog, Ignis, and even Seven can work really well here. You are also required to have a purple unit here, so if you don't have Garland or Caius, you can use Machina and Squall, as multiple targets really bring out the max damage for these two. Follow these examples, and the boss should be done in no time. See? That wasn't so bad. Now let's move on to our next boss, the Lunatic Rampaging Machines. For this boss fight, our Lufenia counter is dealing weakness brave damage, and seeing the many weaknesses this boss has, we shouldn't have a problem. I will also point out here that you are required to bring a blue crystal character to this fight. I'm also going to say that the counter does say increase by 1, which means we need to make sure that we are doing damage on our off turns as well as on our actual turns. Therefore, the Emperor and Trey work wonderful here. With the constant trap damage these two can do along with our Enchanter Kryl, we literally never have to worry about the counter going down. I'm also going to say here that you want to make sure that you want to keep the bosses with many debuffs on them. That way they can't buff themselves, and one of those buffs reduce HP damage taken, which I'm sure I don't need to explain how utterly annoying it is to deal with that. The bosses also at times will gain huge amounts of Brave. I recommend using RCL's Call ability, and this will never be a problem. Though if you don't have that, lots of Brave hits from someone like Garland or Squall would really help. Or you can use Trey and his EX debuff to just insta-break them. Are you surprised to see Sephiroth here? Honestly, so am I. I do have to give him credit though, as I did mention in my earlier video about him, which I recommend checking out if you haven't already. He works really well with an Enchanter, and his damage honestly doesn't really have much of an issue anymore. Still wish though his LD did something else. Literally anything else. If you're using this team, but don't have Sephiroth or Kryl, and even Aranea, you can use Lightning here. Just be sure that you try not to make her hog too many turns, cause then getting the counter back up to a safer number might prove to be difficult. If you don't have anyone in these teams, Ferris, Ignis, Terra, Mog, Reno, and even Seven can do very nicely here. And there we go. Not much to it, right? Now let's see how we stand up against the 3 bosses, including the new boss, the Lunatic Fallen Parrot. So when starting this fight, I'm going to point out immediately that patience is key. Try not to mash your abilities thinking that you need to rush through each wave. Take your time, and only use your abilities very sparingly. Do that, and you'll thank me for it later. I'm also going to recommend here Cloud's Call ability, as well as Arciela. Arceala can HP silence the metal drums to prevent you from taking too much HP damage, and the Lunatic Raven can also be launched. We start off with Wave 1, the Lunatic Metal Drum boss. The counter here is to deal damage with the elements of fire, thunder, water, or darkness. Do that and the counter will increase by 2. These bosses are thankfully really squishy, so taking them down shouldn't be too difficult. I will say this though, try not to get the boss going back to back, since one Metal Quake from them is enough to drop your team's health to either half or below, so the boss taking 2 turns back to back may prove to be fatal for your team. Choosing Aerith and Cryle here from our past team comps is very good, as Aerith can quickly heal us back to full health, and Cryo provides the Thunder enchant for the orb. I chose the Emperor here as his off-turn damage with traps was just too good to pass up. Try to only use one of each of their LDs here though. You're going to need them during all 3 waves, and using more than one for the first boss is really unnecessary. Keep your health nice and high, and be sure to keep Aerith's Seal Evil debuff on both bosses, so the Emperor's traps do increase damage. Coupled with nice Brave games from Cryle, your team will be melting this boss down before you even know it. Now let's go ahead and talk about the next boss, the Lunatic Necro Raven, which you'd think at first glance it's a pretty chill and easy fight. The boss thankfully doesn't do much here, and our team can easily get it down. Now if you chose to bring the Emperor, be very careful when using him, as he's your only form of delay here, so get his EX off as soon as you can. That way you can spam his HP plus to get the delay needed for the orb. It's also okay here to use one more of Aerith's LD as well as Kryle's. For Aerith though, I recommend just using it before the Raven is about to reincarnate itself. That way all you need to do is HP plus with her to get the debuff back online. Or, try your best to save it, that way you can use it right away. If you're using another team, like mine here with Lightning and Y'shtola, the counter for you will be really easy to deal with thanks to Y'shtola. Also, don't get greedy with Lightning's LD, just cause she has 4 uses doesn't mean use it all willy-nilly. You'll need at least 2 of her LDs for the final boss. And now we've gotten to the point where things with this boss get very interesting. The boss has now reincarnated and will recover to full and cleanse all debuffs. This includes your frame ones unfortunately. And each of its turns, it will recover 600,000 health. You honestly heard that right. And by now you're probably thinking, well Riley, how the heck do we deal with that BS? Don't worry, I got your back. By now your summon should be full, which is good because we are definitely going to be using it here, as now this has become a DPS race to the finish line. At least that's the case if you chose my team, including the Emperor. Pop that summon and unleash everything you've got on this dumb bird. Make sure to have the Emperor's traps though before you summon, so you can delay and deal massive damage while in summon with just using his HP plus attack. However, if you chose my team that included Lightning, I will also recommend that you summon here because the strategy is going to be delay. However, delay more on Y'shtola than you would with Lightning, since Y'shtola can recover stones with her EX ability, and Lightning unfortunately has really low skill usage right now. If you have to, go ahead and pop another LD from Lightning. If you do, make sure the Raven will die within that burst window, because if not, it will regen, and trust me when I say, that will lead to you wanting to reset, because 600k damage is honestly too much for either of these teams to really recover by. And now we finally arrived to our final boss, the Lunatic Fallen Parrot, and by now we should have plenty of skills left over to burn these birds to the ground. I know it may not look like it, but if you followed us thus far, trust me when I say we have enough to deal with them. The counter that we deal with here is 5 buffs or more on the boss, and it will freeze the counter. I am going to say this though, that you're going to want to keep the buffs on the boss honestly above 5 as much as you can, because they will buff themselves and give themselves a warrior of light like shield, because this is Lufenia, and why not, right? Now right off the bat, you're going to want to LD with Cryle, as you're going to want the Imperil and Enchant for the Emperor immediately. Go ahead and pop another LD from Aerith here as well, so that way when the Emperor does his traps, he goes ahead and deals additional HP damage to both the bosses. I'll also go ahead and point out that if you happen to save both LDs for the Emperor, at least from the final round with the Raven, you can go ahead and start off actually by using one of his LDs. However, if you go off by what I did here, I was actually doing enough damage in the beginning of the fight to warrant for me to wait on his LD, so I was actually able to get 3 LDs off in this round, 2 by his actual skills and 1 while he was in burst mode. If you happen to choose a team that had lightning in it, go ahead and actually burst around 60%. However, if you did it with the Emperor, I would say go ahead and burst probably a little earlier than that. So probably in the low 70s to a high 60% with the Emperor. And I only say that because the Emperor can easily deal 2 million plus damage within his burst mode, which drops the parrot's health like nothing. Pop another LD here from Aerith and keep your momentum on the boss going strong, since the amount of damage coming from both of our teams are extremely high at this point in the fight, especially if you chose the Emperor. Keep things going like this until the very end, and I promise you'll have it down. And there you go, 1 dead parrot. Congratulations on your 3 burst tokens and your 60 high armor tokens. Be sure to join me next time as we take on Far Ends of Dimensions Transcendence Stage 3. And as always guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.